Inside this unassuming building on Route 11 between Bloomsburg and Danville is Wild for Salmon. What do they have? Some of the best Alaskan fish you're ever going to try. So let's go in and check it out. If you've driven Route 11 between Bloomsburg and Danville, you've probably seen this sign and wondered how wild Alaskan seafood came to be in Columbia County. Meet Jennifer and Stephen Curian, owners of Wild for Salmon. They are not only responsible for bringing wild salmon to the Susquehanna Valley, they are also the fishermen. With a degree in forestry from Penn State, commercial fishing was probably the furthest thing from Stephen's mind as a career opportunity.
I took a job in Idaho with the state of Idaho in their forestry program, and the man that we rented an apartment off of was a retired airline pilot, and he commercial fished in Alaska in his late 60s, early 70s. He kind of talked me out of keeping my state job and going to Alaska on a whim to work for him as a hand on a set net site, which is a type of fishing that happens in Bristol Bay for salmon.
The sockeye run starts around June 15th and has already peaked by July 12th. Jen, an elementary school teacher, spent that first summer in Alaska with Stephen.
We went up, had a blast, just really enjoyed all the outdoor activities that went along with it. And it was mainly just a ticket to get there. Like, I just wanted to go to Alaska so bad that I was willing to take anything. And so then the next year the opportunity was to come back and fish for his son, who had a gill netter, which is the operation we have now. And we took it, and the first season I ended up running an extra boat that he had purchased, not having any experience at all. They just asked if I could run a boat, and I was like, yeah, sure. And it was nothing but disasters, from your net tied up in your wheel, your prop propeller, to stuck on sandbars, just all kinds of crazy stuff, because you don't know anything about the whole fishery, and it's very dynamic.
For the next 3 years, Stephen ran the boat in their friend's operation, and Jen worked as a deckhand.
I kept my teaching job, and it was perfect timing. Fishing is June, July time, so school finished, fly up to Alaska, fish, come back from Alaska, school starts again. So the timing was good as a teacher.
After 4 years, it was time to fish or cut bait, so to speak. Fortunately, their friend was ready to sell his extra boat.
You get good enough that you get the nerve up to buy in to your own operation, and he knew I was gonna make that move, so he sold me the boat, and I bought a permit at the same time.
Jen continued to fish during her summer break.
You weren't gonna give up your teaching job on the bet that I'd catch fish.
Bristol Bay's sockeye fishery is heavily regulated to ensure its sustainability. There are a limited number of permits available from Alaska Fish and Game Commission. This translates into about 1,300 boats on the 5 rivers that feed into Bristol Bay. Salmon return to the river where they were born after spending 2 to 3 years in the Pacific.
We actually catch them before they spawn, which is why they have to regulate, how many we're catching. So we're catching them at the peak flavor. When they enter the fresh water of the rivers, they stop eating, and so that's when they live off of their muscle, body fat, all that kind of thing to get them through the spawning time. So we're catching them before they make it into the river to spawn. We're at the mouth of the river.
Returning salmon are completing their life cycle. They have come to spawn and die. Biologists working for the state of Alaska monitor the return and the harvest, allowing enough salmon to spawn to sustain the population. In 2011, there was a return of 28 million, and 24 million sockeye salmon were harvested.
Whatever they let up the river will die, will spawn and die, and then it'll complete the cycle, the nitrogen cycle, going back into the river and feeding the eggs and all the larvae that feed the fry, and that whole cycle. So you need that, you can't, do without it.
The salmon are caught in gill nets like this one. Fishermen can either set net or drift net, depending on the type of permit they have purchased.
When you're set netting, you use about a 12-foot skiff, right? 20-foot skiff. Your net is anchored to the beach and then also anchored into the river. And so when they allow you to fish, you stretch your net out, attach it to the anchor, allow it to catch fish, and then you go retrieve the fish out of the net, let it fish a little bit longer. And so you're always stationary. You're never moving that net. You're always in the same place.
In drift netting, the net is attached to a 32-foot boat and drifts along behind. Not being tied to one location is a big advantage.
There's 5 rivers that make up Bristol Bay salmon fishery. So you can choose between those 5 rivers. If you're a set netter, you use that same site year in and year out in that same river. And wild populations of fish are cyclical. So some years are really good in one river, the next year it's not so good. So if you're stuck there, that's what you get at the end of the day.
Fishermen must stay within the boundaries of the fishery and can only fish for a fixed amount of time each day.
We're not regulated by the poundage that we can catch. We're regulated by the amount of time that we can fish.
That length of time varies from day to day.
As the fish are coming in, they'll let us fish 8 hours. They check their escapement. Okay, it's looking good. They'll let you fish 10 hours. Maybe there's no fish for a day or two because the ocean currents or whatever, or it's early in the run. They'll shut you down and you'll just sit there, float around, you know, anchored up for a day, 2 days. And it makes you really nervous because you're, you know, wanting to fish. But it's really good. And then they'll see a push of fish come in and the biologist will say, all right, we're gonna fish and, you know, stand by. We're gonna fish at noon tomorrow and we'll fish from noon to 8. And then you're done. And they'll either already have announced the next opening if there's a lot of fish around, and it just goes like that throughout the season.
As the captain of their boat, Stephen is responsible for deciding where to make his sets. He has GPS and charts, but good instincts are important.
It's all gut feeling. I mean, everything, it's all fishing. It's like rod fishing. Why do you cast over there? You know, why do you reel it that fast? We'll spool our net out and you'll start to see them hit the net, and because when they hit the net you'll either see the bobbers dip or you'll see the fish come out the other side because they're hitting through and splashing up. And then you can also see in the water, and we'll unhook from our net and run our net because the fish will lay against it. When they start to see fish caught, they'll be like, whoa, what's this? And they'll just hang there and try to swim along your net. And you'll drive the boat there and it kind of spooks them into it. So that's one technique you can use. But it's kind of important, if you hang on your gear or let your gear out too long, it doesn't fish. Your opening set, it's your most important set because normally you catch your most fish, and they start to get mopped up, cleaned up by the other nets after that. So your first set might be 45 minutes in the water. It might be 20 minutes and you start to haul gear back. Wow. And it just depends. If somebody sets in front of you or close and really cuts you off, you'll just, I'll just yell at the guys and let's get it back on board, and we get it back on and go make a better set. Other times you get the perfect set and you hang on it and you suck all those fish up and take advantage of it.
There is, of course, some competition for prime locations.
The best set is to take that front set, and then as you take that, you drift into the district. And as soon as you set, depending on how many boats there are and how much fish there is, somebody else will set right in front of you. And there'll be a streak of fish where it's happening, and you got to be there or else you're not going to be catching the fish. So you'll run to the front of the line, spool your net out, somebody will cover you up, start hauling back, and everybody's doing that. You just do this rotation, which is probably the least fun of the fishery because it's monotonous. You're dealing with a lot of competition, and it's also sometimes the most fun, I guess, because it's the most adrenaline.
Yeah.
You know, fending off other fishermen.
Gets a little rowdy sometimes.
Yeah, it's a pretty rowdy fishery, so it's kind of an interesting part of it.
That doesn't mean they don't have friends on the water.
We work in about a 10 boat group of friends that are just a knit bunch, you know, a tight knit bunch of guys that help each other. If you break down, they'll come give you a tow. Or if you're catching fish or there's no fish, we all kind of spread out and look for them. And then somebody will be like, hey, we're seeing some jumpers here. And that's one indicator where fish are. So then you'll go and, you know, if you're not seeing anything, you might head that way for the opener. Or everybody makes their opening set and guys are like, I didn't get anything. And then somebody's like, oh, my net's on fire, you know, get over here. So you pull your gear and head over there before everybody else figures it out.
When the fish are really running, Stephen, Jen, and their 2 deckhands can work 22 hours a day. Any break in fishing is used to do maintenance on the nets and the boat and to sleep. It's hard work in tight quarters.
There's 4 people that sleep in the forecastle, and there's just a stove. We've got a stove screwed to the camp stove screwed to the dash. You just stand up and cook, and there's 2 seats for it, a little table, and you just sit on there. I sleep on what we call the day bunk, which is the couch or the bench that everybody else sits on.
In 2011, the Curians caught 154,000 pounds of salmon. About 50,000 of that was earmarked for their retail business. The rest was sold to their processor in Alaska.
Most commercial fishermen take their product and you sell it to the processor that you work for. And they've kind of got a deal you arrange, just kind of a loose tie deal that you're going to work for a processor. They supply you with fuel, water, groceries, anything you need. Finances, if your motor blows up and you need extra money, they'll foot the bill because they need you to catch the fish. We started to bring it home kind of like by accident, and then the market was growing and we could see the demand for salmon growing on the domestic market, just on our local people. And it has, since we started, it's really grown quite a bit.
They started by selling it at farmers markets, but each year the demand increased, so the Curians brought home more fish and they needed a place to store it.
It went from 2,000 pounds to 20,000 pounds to 30,000 pounds, and now we're at 50,000 pounds of product coming back and selling it. So we needed a facility, and then so we were just looking for a building to put a cold storage in that we could work out of. And this was on the market, and so we bought it. And from there, we're like, okay, now we're on Route 11. Why don't we have a seafood storefront?
Wild for Salmon offers fresh frozen fillets and portions, smoked salmon, and the very popular burgers are made on site. They now also carry other Alaskan species like halibut, black cod, and crab.
All this stuff in here is caught by small businesses, just like our salmon business, but they're either doing halibut or black cod, or so it's kind of great because where what we buy, and our money when we buy it goes to other fishermen that are just making a living just like we are.
In addition to their store, Wild for Salmon sells their product at 5 farmers markets and 15 health food stores around the region. There are also 15 restaurants that have their salmon on the menu. The business has grown enough that both Jen and Steve work at it full time.
The sales part of it, got bigger than what Steve could handle, and me on the weekends, and so I resigned from teaching, I think 3, maybe 4 years ago now.
Even though they've brought back more salmon than ever this year, it's likely Wild for Salmon will run out of their stock in March. There are lots of ways for you to fill your freezer with fish. You can visit their website at wildforsalmon.com or stop at their location on Route 11, and you can call 387-0550 for hours. Well, that does it for this episode of In Your Neighborhood. If you have a story idea, you can email it to me at jenwakeman@ccnnews8.com. And be sure to check out our Facebook page the next time you're online. I'm your host, Jennifer Wakeman. Thanks for watching.
Do you need one of those really
Brett has legs. Because they never see your legs in the news.
I know, they only see from here out.
Exactly. So look, she actually has legs. Isn't that nice?